So, hey guys, this is my experience with interviewing a social worker. A little background. It's my brother. He's a counselor. He's my half brother, but I consider him like my brother. He lived with me until I was like probably 15. And then he moved out once he got his full-time job. And I haven't talked to him a whole lot since then. So it was really cool to get to learn about what he does and why he loves to do what he does. And the things that he the things that he had to do to get to where he's at. And so, yeah. The first question I asked was, why did you choose social work? And he really hadn't made up his mind till the end of his undergraduate in psychology. And then he says he was really drawn to the concept of dealing with the mind. And once he looked into it and learned all the things that they get to do, he knew that's what he really wanted to do. The second question I asked was where he got his degree and what his academic experience was like. He got his undergraduate at LSUS and then his master's at Louisiana Tech in counseling. It took him about 3 years to complete his degree and 900 hours of internship, which he did at Brentwood Hospital, which is a psychiatric hospital in Shreveport, Louisiana. He enjoyed his time in school a lot, especially at the psychiatric hospital. And he said it was pretty fun to get to work there. The third question I asked was, what jobs have you held as a social worker? And so once he got licensed, he was offered a job at the hospital, which he accepted, which he was a case manager primarily, and he was responsible for assessing individuals once they got admitted. He would conduct family sessions, group therapy, arrange services for people once they got discharged from the hospital. He would formulate treatment and work with the doctors and nurses to do all that. And occasionally he would get to do individual therapy. He worked with mostly kids, but came across everybody at some point, from children to old people, all of them. He worked with everyone. The things he treated up there was really, really big problems like major depression, anxiety, PTSD, psychosis, schizophrenia, addiction, and etc. I mean, he dealt with a lot of very serious things up there. And the fourth question I asked was, what is he currently doing as a social worker? So he had to have a minimum of 2 years and at least 3,000 hours of providing services under supervision. And once completing that and another comprehensive exam, he could apply for his LPC license. And that allowed him to just have a lot more freedom and choose what he wanted to do, because he really wanted to work for himself and open his own private business. And that's what he did. He has his own private practice, so he gets to choose his own hours. He works for himself, and he's his own boss, so he doesn't have to listen to other people. But he focuses on things like suicide, adolescence, grief, autism, and anxiety. Those are what he focuses on. That's what he enjoys to focus on and what he feels he does the best at. The fifth question I asked is, what is social work to you? He said from a counseling perspective, it allows a person to grow and heal. And he said that some people allow him to kind of just enter their life journey and with them, and he kind of follows them along and guides them through everything. And he really enjoyed that aspect of it. He said just helping people and, knowing what goes on with their life and being a big help to them and knowing that you're a help to them feels really good to him. The sixth question I asked was, what makes a difference between a skilled and an unskilled social worker? And he thinks it's a little more complex, but it's a little more complex, but being able to just listen and just know what you're listening to and comprehend everything and fully take it in, have your full attention into what you're listening to is what really sets people aside. He felt like that there was a lot of people that just kind of didn't give it 100. And, building a relationship with someone is huge. And just once you build that relationship, it seems to help out social working a lot. Once you gain the trust of someone, he said, gaining someone's trust is his biggest thing. And then he can just further and further help them the more that they work together and build a relationship. The 7th question I asked was, do you believe that there are good and bad social workers? And he said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's good and bad everything. But he said most of the people that he works with are good social workers. Most people have a good heart for it. He didn't have anyone bad experiences to say. He said that most of the people he worked with are really good. And it's just a thing that just comes from the heart. The 8th question I asked was, if you were trying to convince me to become a social worker, what would you want me to know? He said the job can be very hard. And a lot of the stories he hears are very traumatic and very hard to sit there and listen to. And even hard to understand how that could happen to someone. And it can kind of lead to what he called a great deal of burnout and jadedness if you don't practice self-care. And his way of practicing his self-care is taking care of himself through exercising and just having many hobbies. And he said a lot of times he just needs to be alone just to kind of rethink and recharge, because some of the stories he has heard are very, very disturbing.